exploring multilingual education in Massachusetts, and is brought to you by Citizens for Public Schools, for which I am a proud board member. I am thrilled to be here with you. And as someone who immigrated from the Dominican Republic and grew up as a multilingual learner in the Boston Public Schools, this topic is very close and dear to my heart. I'll be your moderator for this event, and we're really excited to bring together a group of incredible speakers who are going to share their experiences, their insights, and expertise with us around issues that deeply impact our education system, especially for multilingual learners and immigrants' families. So before we get started, I just have 2 or 3 housekeeping notes. One, you might have just heard that this meeting will be recorded. We ask that you please keep your microphones muted during the presentations. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll address them during the Q&A session a little later after our speakers speak. And yeah, feel free to please introduce yourself in the chat with your name, pronouns, and where you're logging in from. So yeah, we have a very exciting lineup of speakers who will be sharing their insights and experiences on various aspects of supporting multilingual learners and their families. So we could get started. Our first speaker is going to be Roger Rice. He is a lawyer and executive director of multicultural education, training, and advocacy. Roger has been at the forefront of legal advocacy for English learner and immigrant students. He was instrumental in the fight to protect bilingual education in Massachusetts and continues to challenge policies like the MCAS graduation requirement. So Roger will discuss the history and the political landscape of bilingual education. And please please join me in welcoming Roger Rice. Roger, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Suli. The main thing I have to say, I'm going to say right now, I'll probably try to repeat it at the end, but it is that the lack of available home language programs is less an educational problem and much more a problem of overcoming hostility to immigrants and people who are multilingual learners. And the first step in solving this problem is for parents and teachers in the community to organize. That's more important than any legal thing. People got to get together and organize if they want to keep their language in the schools. That's simple. The history in Massachusetts is this. Massachusetts was the first state in the country to have a bilingual education law. 1971, the Massachusetts Transitional Bilingual Education Act.
Excuse me, Roger?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm hearing him a little bit low. Does everybody else as well? Maybe it's just me?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, yeah. So you sound just a little bit low. If you could just speak a little louder, that would be great.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah? Well, it says it's at 100%, so it doesn't get higher than 100. So Massachusetts was the first state to pass a bilingual education law in 1971. And in the years after that, there was an attempt by people in the legislature to get rid of the bilingual education law almost every year. And some of you who go back may remember that every spring, parents came in buses from around the state, packed the State House, testified all day, held rallies outside. And for years, we were able to fend off those attempts to get rid of the law. And there was organizing going on in a number of cities to make the law happen and get teachers into the classrooms the kids could understand. In the 1990s, there was a national movement to get rid of bilingual education, not only in Massachusetts, but to make English the official language of the country, and in part funded by a right-wing Republican politician, millionaire in California named Ron Unz, U-N-Z. There were attempts to bring ballot initiatives to get rid of bilingual education. That happened in California, and they got rid of bilingual education. It happened in Massachusetts. It happened in Arizona, where they got rid of bilingual education. And in Colorado, people beat that back. In Massachusetts, Unz from California, what was he coming to Massachusetts by himself? How could that be? He had a base of support. His support included the late John Silber, who was head of the Board of Ed and was the former president of BU. And significantly, the Pioneer Institute at that time, where Charlie Baker was found and was I believe he had a title there. He was somebody. And they were bringing in speakers to support, let's get rid of bilingual education and let's support this ballot referendum to do so. They were successful. They got rid of bilingual education in 2002. What I can tell you is that the vote itself was interesting. And you can look this up, but it's the reality. In voting precincts that were mostly Latino, 93% of people said keep bilingual education and we reject this ballot initiative. And people were asked, what's your reason? And the main reasons were, number one, we think it's working. And number two, we as parents think we should choose what kind of program our kids have. Nonetheless, even though 93% of the Latinos wanted to keep bilingual education, it didn't work out because 75% of the, frankly, white people voted to get rid of it. Why? I had the opportunity, if you can call it that, of looking through a two-way mirror, a focus group of white voters in south of Boston who were asked to talk about what did they think about this ballot initiative. And the one takeaway that I remember from that maybe hour and a half discussion was a woman who said, I work at the South Shore Mall in Braintree, and it really, really, really disgusts me and makes me mad to hear them speak Spanish while they're waiting in line. And I thought, what arguments are we going to make about the value of bilingual education against that kind of a mentality? Because that kind of a mentality was driving the vote and not arguments about what the research literature shows about the value of having a second language. And I just want to say that because I think that if you don't realize or not willing to say what we're dealing with, then it becomes an obscure debate around statistics and research. It's not about that, I don't believe. I have never, in all the years I've been doing this stuff, found a family that said, we don't want our kids to learn English. I've never found that. Everybody does. But that's not the point. Keeping one's home language in school helps kids do better in all subjects. It also develops an important skill in life, and it helps families. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that people have written about importance of intergenerational maintaining of the home language. That said, Massachusetts ended getting rid of bilingual ed and putting in something called structured English immersion, which frankly, when it was first launched, was a slogan without a there. It didn't even purport to have ways of teaching kids English, much less math or science or social studies. And that has been the Massachusetts program up until a few years ago and I'll get to that in a second. The exception to that was a provision that dual language programs could continue and programs for kids with special needs using their own language could continue. That was put in a footnote 2 years after the first thing passed. It was fought and we got it through by a very, very narrow margin. The Look Act passed about, in 16 or 17, opened up the possibility for different kinds of programs throughout the state. Unfortunately, it has not been taken advantage of. Thank you, Susie. Because a lot of the same philosophies that were at the State Department of Ed that brought the end to bilingual ed are still there and are still deciding what programs can go forward. What I wanted to do and end with, it's really where I began, is that if parents and teachers and community members will organize, they can get the programs they want and their kids need. And if they don't, they won't. Right now, people in Boston realize there's an effort to dump kids into mainstream classes. That's a fight. And that's the fight of today, right now. So thank you very much. I see I maxed out on my 8 minutes. Thanks.
Yo, Manuel.
Thank you, Roger. And I just want to remind folks that you could feel free if any questions come up as you hear the speaker speak. You could feel free to drop them in the chat, and also feel free to introduce yourself. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. All right. So thank you, Roger, again for that insightful thoughts. And our next speaker is Dr. Debbie Zakarian, founder of Zakarian and Associates, and a leading expert in educational practices for culturally and linguistically diverse populations. Dr. Zakarian has more than 3 decades of experience and is the author of over 100 publications. She will discuss the diversity of multilingual students and the challenges of under and under-identification of English learners with disabilities. And let's welcome Dr. Debbie Zakarian.
Thank you, Suleika, and hi, everyone. I'm really delighted to be with this group of esteemed panelists. While we each bring different perspectives, and Roger was wonderful at sharing a great perspective about the landscape of Massachusetts, we all want, one thing we have in common, no matter where we are, where we live in the state and the nation, we all want students to do well, to succeed in school and in their lives. And I'd like to share 3 points with you. The first is about the diversity of multilingual learners in our nation and in our state. The second is about multilingual learners identified with special education needs. And the third is about what works. So first, I'd like to share with you some thoughts about the diversity of multilingual learners. And there's so much we should know about this population that goes beyond the language they speak. Their diversity, that is the diversity of multilingual learners, is like no other group in our state and in our nation. They represent the fastest growing population in Massachusetts and our nation's schools, and urban schools, which were once dominated by speakers of English, have rapidly become more linguistically diverse. Suburban districts, similarly, are experiencing a significant increase, and even rural communities in our state are seeing growth. Another type of diversity and a profound challenge in our state and in our nation is the epic number of all students, not just multilingual learners, but the total population experiencing abuse, neglect, and significant household challenge. Half of the nation's children have experienced or are experiencing adversity. That is a lot to take in. And while multilingual learners are included in this statistic, about half of the nation's children, by the Children's Survey of our health, and while multilingual learners are included amongst this profound statistic, many have also experienced living in war and conflict zones, being persecuted in their home countries, being displaced, making the long, arduous, and completely very dangerous trip to perceived safety in the United States, being separated from their families, living in constant fear of being deported, having had significant interruptions to their education. What constitutes a family also represents diversity. In general, it includes children being raised by 2 parents, a single parent, a foster parent, a grandparent, blended parent, and extended family. But in terms of multilingual learners, it also includes children who've come to Massachusetts as a whole family unit, as well as those who've been separated from their families. And it also includes undocumented and citizen children of undocumented families, many of whom live with unrelated people and in extreme isolation. The diversity of languages is also important to think about. Multilingual learners nationwide represent 400 different languages. And while Spanish is by far the most common, some districts in Massachusetts have multilingual learners who speak many languages, while others have multilingual learners who speak only one or two languages. A neighboring district may have students who speak a very different language than their neighbor. And students who speak the same language, such as Spanish, speak many different dialects and come from different countries in Central and South America, the Caribbean, and the United States. To say the least, multilingual learners are a really diverse group. And while we might see this as a challenge, what we are seeing is that it's so full of possibilities when we look, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But I want to talk about a second point, and that is multilingual learners with special education needs. Here are some facts from the U.S. Department of Education about multilingual learners with special needs. Our federal laws include many types of disabilities, like intellectual disability, a hearing, a visual, a speech and language, a health, a physical impairment, as well as autism, specific learning disabilities, and others. However, multilingual learners are far more likely to be identified as having one of two disabilities as opposed to the broad range included in federal law. They are more likely to be diagnosed with a specific learning disability or a speech and language impairment than their English fluent peers, and less likely to be identified with all of the other disabilities than their English fluent peers. They're also less likely to receive a high school diploma. They're also less likely to be served inside the regular classroom, 80% or more, as compared to school-age students with identified special education needs who are English fluent. They're also much more likely to drop out of school. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education talks about the inappropriate ways we tend to identify multilingual learners. What we tend to do is we identify multilingual learners as having a disability when they don't seem to be making the same academic progress as their peers or learning English rapidly. And then we swing the pendulum in the opposite direction. That is, we tend not to refer students who are multilingual learners for a special education evaluation, assuming that what we're thinking about is that they have a language difference and not a disability when they do. So the stall and wait, or immediately evaluate a student and assume they have a disability, are two very disturbing trends. They point to what is so important for all of us to know and do to help multilingual learners succeed. That's the third point I'd like to share with you. The third point is about what works for this very diverse and growing number of multilingual learners in our state. I'd like to include a couple of thoughts on this topic. And that is, first, when we use a strength-based approach that identifies and draws from the many strengths that all students possess, that is their personal, their cultural, their linguistic strengths, and more, they are far more likely to succeed in school. For example, the renewed interest in dual language and bilingual education programming is because it draws from student strengths, their language strengths, and it's been shown to have an astounding effect on multilingual learners' academic success. And when we build programming that's genuinely based on who students are and what they bring, we have a far better chance to discern language difference from disability and to help students succeed. Additionally, and there's no doubt that the people who know our students best and can help them the best is their families. It is why there is such a need for parents and guardians to be involved as true partners with us. In fact, the schools that have the best outcomes are those that involve families as partners. As Henderson, Mapp, Johnson, and Davies told us years ago in their groundbreaking book, Moving Beyond the Bake Sale, it involves moving toward working together on behalf of our ever-growing, ever-changing multilingual learners and their peers. We can be successful when we really understand the diversity of our students, when we have a deep understanding of our multilingual learners with learning differences versus disabilities, when we draw from our students' cultural and linguistic strengths and assets and partner with families in support of the most precious people in our state, our children. And I think, and I'm sure you agree, there's no better time to do this than right now. So I'll turn it back to Suleika and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Zakarian, for those powerful insights. So our next speaker, and thank you all for continuing to drop your questions in the chat. So our next speaker is Simel Rodriguez, a Dominican mother of 3 and a dedicated advocate for multilingual students and their families. Simel arrived in the US in 2011 and currently lives in Roxbury. So in 2023, she began working at a wonderful organization called St. Stephen's Youth Programs in the Parent Mentor Program at the Blackstone Elementary School, where her daughter studies as a multilingual learner. Since then, she has become a parent coordinator for St. Stephen's and has been actively fighting for more bilingual programs in schools and promoting bilingual literacy. Please welcome Simel Rodriguez.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good evening, everyone.
Quiero comenzar. Ya saben que soy madre.
I wanted to start first, you know that I am a mother. I just want to give my testimony personally when I registered my daughter in high school. So I selected the multilingual school like Hernandez and Harling. However, they put my daughter at the Blackstone. That means that the school has done great. The school has done great work, the teachers, but my daughter, she is losing her language. When I see my daughter, when she goes to Santo Domingo, she's not able to speak fluently with her grandparents, with her cousin, with her relatives in my country. So I can see that she's losing her native language. That's why I participated, giving my testimony, lift out my voice, so because that touches me personally. It shouldn't be very frustrated as a parent to pick a school for you kids, for you students. And this is happened because we don't have enough multilingual schools. We should hire or have more multilingual teachers, or the district should just spread more information or more information for parents also to communicate, especially that my daughter has an IP. I am advocate as well for the district puts in the agenda the importance of the multilingual in the process to implement that. We need that the district has a plan and clear goals. I just want to finish saying this. As a mother, she does have a daughter learning multilingual. I should not stop advocating until they get
somos
the educators understand that we are values, we have our priorities. We are the 40% of the population of Boston students.
Hasta aquí, esta es mi parte. Gracias.
This is my part only. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Simel, for sharing your story. So our next speaker is Suhey Rondon, a mother of 3 and a family organizer with St. Stephen's as well, but also a really good friend of mine. Originally from the Dominican Republic, Suhey is passionate about family involvement in education and has dedicated herself to teaching other parents how to get involved in their children's school. So let's give a warm welcome to Suhey Rondon.
Muchas gracias, buenas noches, gracias por la
Thank you very
introducción.
much. Thank you for the
Buenas noches a
introduction,
todos.
Suhey.
Mi nombre es Suhey Rondón, soy dominicana.
I'm Suhey
vivo en
Rondon.
la
I am from
comunidad de
Santo
Rosendale.
Domingo. I live
Soy
in Rosendale
organizadora de
community.
familias en
I am a
Science
parent
Teacher Program,
organizer
que
in
es
the
una
program St.
organización sin
Stephen.
fines de
It's
lucro
a
que
non-profit
promueve la equidad
organization,
en la educación y la
promotes
justicia del lenguaje.
the equity about
La
a
justicia social del
multilingual
lenguaje, perdón.
education, about the
He
language
estado
justice.
organizando familias por más de
I
4
have been
años.
organizing
Tengo
since
contacto con más de
years.
150
I
familias
have
multilingües.
contact with
Hacer este
150
trabajo
parents,
me ha servido
parents,
para continuar
students
aprendiendo el
multilingual.
sistema de
So that's
educación de
motivating
Boston
me
y del
to
estado de
continue
Massachusetts.
advocating for the system of
Soy madre de
education in
3
Boston and
niños.
Massachusetts. I
Actualmente
have 3
asisten al
kids.
programa
They go
médico
to
a través de
the
Boston
program
Public
MEDCO
School.
through a
Mis
public
hijos
school
fueron
in Boston.
alfabetizados en la escuela bilingüe Herley.
My kids
Esto
who
les sirvió
went
de base
to Harley
fundamental para mantener su
school,
idioma.
and this is
Por
to
razón de
keep
que nos
their
mudamos
language.
a la zona de
Why we
Rosendale
moved
y
to
aquí no
Rosendale,
contamos con una
and now
escuela
here we don't
bilingüe,
have a
opté por
multilingual
poner el programa de
school or
médico.
education.
Sin embargo, o
Listen,
sea, tuve que dejar la maravillosa escuela de la Herley
I
que
had
estaba
to
acá.
leave the wonderful
Sin
school, the
embargo, he
Harley,
continuado
that I
dándole
loved.
soporte desde la primera
However,
hora en
I
casa.
been supporting my
Para
kids
mí fue
from home
impresionante
with their
viajar a
primary
escuelas de República
language.
Dominicana y ver que mis
For me,
hijos no tienen ningún
for me was very
inconveniente en
impressed when we
comunicarse con
went to
sus abuelos, con
Santo
sus tíos,
Domingo,
con mis
because I
amigos,
could see my
con todos
kids,
los
they were
familiares allá.
interacting with
Fue algo
all our
verdaderamente que me llenó de
relatives,
mucho orgullo que mis
cousins,
hijos
and
estuvieran allá y
aunts,
no
uncles, and they were
tenían que estar
able
cerca
to
de mí para estar
communicate
comunicados.
with their
Les voy
primary
a hablar un
language,
poco
so
de los
they didn't
impactos que
need
tuvimos
help
en nuestra campaña en
with their
Science Stephen,
communication in
abogando
Spanish.
por el
So we
futuro
have
de
a
los
campaign at
estudiantes
St. Stephen for
multilingües
the
aprendices
future for
de
those
idioma inglés.
students
Hicimos el
to
año pasado
continue
hicimos
learning the
una
multilingual.
petición en Action Network
Last
a
year, we
fin
made a
de tener un
petition
plan de inclusión para los estudiantes aprendices de inglés
to implement
en los grados
more
K0 hasta séptimo grado,
education from
donde
students
obtuvimos como
from
resultado 400 firmas que
pre-K up to
representadas por más de 50 escuelas.
students. So we collect
Esta petición
signatures
fue
for
presentada a los
many
altos
schools.
directivos de
We
Boston Public
presented
School
for
y
those
organizamos una
director
reunión de
high
seguimiento
level
donde la
at the public school in
superintendente
Boston for
respondió a sus
this
demandas punto por
principal.
punto delante de las familias.
She responded for
Actualmente,
those
con el crecimiento de inscripción de nuevos estudiantes
demands. So
multilingües en la ciudad de
with the
Boston,
multilingual and
continuamos
multi-Boston,
trabajando y
we continue
organizando
working and
arduamente nuestra
organizing
campaña para obtener mejores
with our
programas que
campaign
ayuden
so we can
con una
obtain more
mejor educación
programs with
para
a better
estos
education for
nuestros
those
estudiantes
students.
multilingües que
For
representan
our multilingual
más del
students,
40%
they
de la población
represent
estudiantil.
more than 40%
Hemos estado
students
trabajando con
in
diferentes
Massachusetts,
alianzas.
in Boston. So
Por
we've been
eso,
working with
aquí tenemos una
Alliance
demanda. Le voy
Boston.
a
So
pedir
we
a
have
Zuleika que por favor la pusiera en el chat, que
some
son las
flyers
cuatro
right
demandas que
here.
estamos
So we have the
trabajando
requirements that we are
actualmente,
working on
donde
it. I'm
pedimos
gonna
un
ask
mayor número de
Suleika
programas
to put it on the
bilingües,
chat. So
ya
we
que los
have
niños
a
no
few
necesitan
numbers
perder su lengua materna para poder aprender
for our
inglés.
students.
Más
So we
involucramiento
don't want
familiar.
our students, we don't
Como
want
estuvo
our
diciendo
kids to
la
lose
doctora
their
y todos los que me
primary
anteceden,
language.
el involucramiento de la familia
And
es la base para tener escuelas sólidas.
for us,
Que las
that
familias estén enteradas de
is
lo que
the
está
base.
pasando en su escuela, que puedan colaborar,
Like
que
we
puedan
have said
ayudar,
that
que
the
puedan
parents,
seguir
the
de buscar
guardians should
buenos
get
resultados en
involved
estudiantes,
with
que es
their
lo que queremos.
students
Y algo
and
que me llamó bastante
for
la
better
atención
outcome for our
es que
students,
algo
something
que
that
dijo la
called
doctora
my
ahorita,
attention,
es
something
porque dice
that the
que la
doctor
madre,
said right now.
cuando un
So
niño
for
se lo mandan a
for
especial,
every mother who sends a
porque por el
child for
idioma,
a special
básicamente. El
education,
niño no tiene
it's
ninguna
because
discapacidad. El niño tiene que
of the
tener un programa
language.
que se le
There is
adapte
no
a lo que
disability with the
necesita.
students.
También estamos
What they
exigiendo
need
esta
is
demanda,
more
más educadores
help
bilingües,
with
ya
the
que la
language.
demanda ha crecido bastante por la
The
masiva
demand
inscripción que hemos tenido actualmente.
has
Y
been
deseamos
high
para
for
entrar
the
y
decision
atados
that
los
we are
gastos
working
del
on it.
título 1, que sean consultadas las familias sobre cómo
With
se
the
gastarán
title
los fondos
number 1, so
y
how to get
cómo
the funds for
qué se
this
harán con los fondos no gastados.
and what
Entonces,
we're gonna do with the funds that
termino
we don't
diciendo
spend.
que
So we
el
wanna say
involucramiento de la familia es lo que
the
va a
family has to get
garantizar
involved.
el éxito. Es la unión, no nos podemos cansar, tenemos que seguir
We have to
luchando
get
para obtener la
together. We
educación que nuestros estudiantes merecen.
tireless continue
Buenas
working
noches,
for
muchas
our
gracias.
students. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Suhey. And I'm sorry, what I dropped in the chat is not completely downloaded, so I will be dropping the demands very soon. And Ari, if you have them available, please drop them in the chat for me. So thank you so much, Suhey. You guys are doing amazing
Ay,
work.
también,
Oh, go
perdón,
ahead.
y gracias por poner en el chat nuestras reuniones comunitarias.
Thank you for putting in the
que
chat our community
son donde nos
meetings.
hemos juntado con tantas familias, las
This
hemos
is where we meet
y
with a lot of
hemos,
parents. We've been listening
con
to
la voz de
them.
cada familia en estas
With
reuniones es
every
que hemos
single voice at this
podido
meeting,
tener los pasos que hemos avanzado.
that's how we have
tanto
obtained the
la
steps that
campaña
we are
pasada
on
como la
right now.
venidera.
Like
Entonces,
last,
el próximo martes tendremos nuestra próxima reunión
also
comunitaria.
next Tuesday,
Veo que
we're gonna
pusiste ahí
have
el flyer
our
de las
community
reuniones, ahí
meeting. We
están
have the
del año
flyers
completo.
already for our
Les
meetings,
esperamos.
and we will see you there.
Gracias. Thank you very much, Suhey. All right, so up next, oops, lost my screen a little. Hold on, please. All right. So I'm sorry about that. I had to tell some folks in the background that I am in a meeting. It happens. All right. So up next, we have Irisha Valentin, who is an educator in the city of Boston. Most of her teaching career has been in supporting and working with multilingual scholars and their families. Irisha is a proud graduate, elementary through high school of Boston Public Schools. She completed her graduate teaching studies through the Boston Teacher Residency Program, and she is also a community herbalist and healing justice organizer based in the Wampanoag, Massachusetts territory. Irisha?
Gracias. Thank you so much. Buenas noches a todos. Good evening, everyone. I just want to quickly thank the presenters so far, Roger, Dr. Zakarian, Simel, and Suhey. Thank you so much for all that you've shared. And thank you everyone who's here with us this evening. Thank you so much for your presence. This is CPS for the highlight on this very important topic. And there's other parts of this series, so please make sure to sign up. I just want to say disclosure, I am one educator and in the midst of many. And so I'm speaking from my perspective in my 18 years as educator in 4 different schools in Boston. Also, I'm speaking as a multilingual learner myself, going through the beautiful emergence of becoming a bilingual human. And, I just want to give a few topics, bullets around the perspective of an educator, right? In working in specific sheltered English immersion communities, classrooms. Also very different in every school. I will speak about my experience at my current school, where we do have about, I heard a lot of 40%. In my school, it's about 60% of multilingual learners. And so I think, again, really glad that in my school, I'm one of most of the teachers that are, well, I'm going to use are and were, because we're in this transition phase out of SEI. But the ones that, most of the teachers that we do have in SEI are bilingual and do speak Spanish, because that's the dominant language of our students. That's 60%, about 55% are Spanish speakers. And so I would say that in that regard, the students and families who come in our school are met with people who understand them, are met with people who can communicate with them. And that is part of what we are not discussing enough, right? We don't discuss enough around what it feels like to be understood, what that does to you, right? What that does to you emotionally. If you've ever been in another country where the main language is not your own, and you finally find that person who understands you and can speak your language, right? That relief that you feel. And so I see that in my students. I see that in their families, that when I speak to them in Spanish, and I'm learning Haitian Creole because that's another language that's coming up a lot. There is a sense of, okay, I am more comfortable, I am more seen. And so, with that, along with that theme, one of the issues that I notice is the lack of resources, right? There's not enough. In my school, there's a good amount, but it's still not enough. There's still, I think, especially now, and I think Roger, you highlighted this for us, this move in the district, and I saw somebody else put it in the chat, this move in the district to move to basically get rid of what we know as SEI and move into an inclusion model for our multilingual learners. And so that is already happening in our K1, K2 classrooms. And so I don't know, I haven't spoken to those teachers. I don't know what it's like yet to have, I mean, I will have to say too, this is happening before now. We were still getting students whose language is not, English is not their first language, and put in a gen ed class or put in with a teacher who does not speak that language, right? So it was happening before this shift. And I'm speaking specifically in Boston, right? And so I think with that, it's also the lack of understanding for our educators of what the nuances, right, of supporting a multilingual learner. One, the academic needs, right, the social linguistic needs of those students. There's not enough understanding. One course in becoming SEI certified or even dual language certified is not enough. I think also understanding our students' migration stories and the trajectory and the differences is I can't see the chat, but let me know if when I have to stop talking, please. Okay. Yeah, understanding our students' migration stories, right? And that the trauma that potentially could have on our students. And Dr. Zakarian mentioned this. I think also just fully understanding the what needs there are for, and the beauty, like the celebration of being a bilingual, becoming bilingual. There is not enough celebrating. You know, I literally had a student this morning tell me that they need to learn more English, that they're not a good reader. And I asked them, do you read in Spanish? And the Spanish speaker. And she said, yeah. And do you read in English? Yeah. So I said, well, look at you, look at your big brain. And so there's not enough, in my opinion, right? I'm keep saying that there's not enough celebrating and really telling our students, yes, you're worthy. Your brain is worthy. Your brain is bigger, literally, because you speak 2 languages, 3 languages. We don't have enough of that. We speak of learning English from a deficit model, not enough honoring what our students come in with. Just because you don't speak English, it doesn't mean something's wrong with you, right? And I think there needs to be a shift in that model, or not in that model, but in that thinking. There's something else I wanted to say. You know, the other big issue that we are having is, again, there's these changes are happening in our district without any additional supports. There's no more people coming in, no more ESL teachers. We haven't seen an increase in reading specialists. So there's a disconnect there, right? And there's something to be said about a task force that chooses to resign with that task force that has been in place for years that says out. I'll leave it there. If there are any more questions, I know they'll come up. I know I'm missing something. I was going to say something else. Oh, one last thing I wanted to say. And so shout out to Suhey and Simil and any other parent that is here. Your voice is more important than ours. Hands down. You all, if you really are interested and want to ask these questions and have your voices heard and have a choice, your participation is more critical than ours. And I'm saying ours, like, as teachers. So thank you to those parents that are moving the needle. And I hope that through this learning and unlearning that we could have more of that participation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Irishan. I think that was really wonderful, and it's great to have an educator perspective here as well. So now we are going to open it up for the Q&A session. I do see some questions. Oh, sorry.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you want me to go ahead? Okay.
Yeah.
And one thing before I start with the questions is, while tonight's presentation is somewhat a case study on Boston, you will see the exact same patterns happening in every urban district across the state. It's really emblematic of the whole statewide issues that are going on, which relates to the first question. Why does Mary Skipper, the Boston Public Schools superintendent, want to force non-English speaking students into English-only classrooms before they are ready? And that's for all of the panelists. Roger, you want to go first?
Yeah. And I've never spoken with Mary Skipper on this subject, so it's kind of, I don't know, it's taking a leap. So I infer by her actions, I guess. Boston, for a number of years, has been under pressure from DESE, the Department of Ed, to do what it thinks ought to be done for students in terms of their MCAS test scores. And threats have been made to take over Boston. with sort of mixed support from, for example, the Boston Globe or the Herald. Many parents and teachers have certainly resisted that. And to this moment, it hasn't happened. But part of those threats were to do education the way former Commissioner Riley, who was a takeover guy in Lawrence, another school district with a very large Latino population, which had at one point a good bilingual program and turned it into an English-only program. So there was part of where I think Mary Skipper or her predecessor were coming from is we got to do what the state tells us, otherwise we'll be in trouble. The other thing said by Mary Skipper's people is that, well, the U.S. Department of Justice is requiring them to get rid of native-speaking SEI because they consider it segregation. I've talked to the attorneys from DOJ, and they claim absolutely they never said that to Boston. So that one's made up. The third is, however, I think there's a money factor. If you can put kids in a classroom with more and more and more kids per teacher, and you insist that the teachers be triply certified, an ESL license, special ed license, and their other normal license, you can save money. You can cut services and save money by having one teacher deal with all kids with a whole range of issues in a larger size classroom. And I think so as I'm pleased the state and save money at the same time, I think of the major motivations. Would Mary Skipper agree with what I just said about her? Probably not. But you know, the proof is in what are they doing? And and they are trying to get rid of native speaking classrooms and teachers. That's what they're trying to do, while saying the opposite. So that's my answer. Others may see it differently.
The other panelists? The next question is, what is the major difference between the early bilingual education law back in the 70s, 80s that we had with the EL requirements or law now today? Is there a difference between the Look Act of 2017, I think it was, and the early transitional bilingual education law? This may be you again, Roger.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, the difference is that transitional bilingual education was required if a school district had the correct number of enough kids, you had to have it, and it was a bilingual program where teachers spoke the language of the kids, and the kids also were getting ELD, so they would learn English at the same time. The Look Act is simply a vehicle by which school districts can propose different kinds of programs, but don't have to. And so if right now in Massachusetts, the great majority of school districts with multilingual learners are doing exactly what the people who got rid of bilingual ed wanted. They're doing English only without any native language. And that is perfectly legal under the Look Act. The Look Act opens the door, kind of stands in the way a little bit, and doesn't require anybody to come forward.
Okay, anybody else? This gets, I'm gonna actually ask a non-panelist if she might want to speak to this around what St. Stephen's is doing, in addition to what Suhei and Samel contributed. But Ari Browns, who's director of programs at St. Stephen's Youth Programs, or director of organizing, I'm sorry, at St. Stephen's Youth Programs. Are there organizations, groups, individuals willing and able to help parents interested in organizing to support multilingual or English learner students? And Ari, I don't know if you had anything to add to what Suhei and Samel shared.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Fun to get put on the spot here. So in addition to what Suhei and Simel shared, so at St. Stephen's Youth Programs, we do a lot of family organizing around various issues. And this Multilingual Learners campaign is our big work right now. And so please share, I put the flyer in the chat. Please share that. That is open to families, parents, caregivers, and we mostly work on Boston Public Schools issues. But that it's a very welcoming multilingual space. We have interpretation into as many languages as we have people speaking them. We do dinner, we do childcare, and it's a really beautiful community that comes together and then advocates for our students. So Suhei and Simel run that. They do an incredible job with it. And I would also say we recently co-founded the Multilingual Learners Alliance, which is the group that with the flyer that you see in the chat, that's alongside the Boston Teachers Union, Beja, SPEDPAC, sorry, not SPEDPAC, DLAC, and Citywide Parent Council. And so if you have a group that is interested in joining the Multilingual Learner Alliance, we're always open to new membership in the coalition. Oops, sorry about that. That was my phone. And so, sorry, can you all hear me? My mom's trying to call. So we're always open to new members. So I'll put my email in the chat. We meet about every 2 to 4 weeks, and we talk about these issues and what's going on and how we can organize together, because we know that we're not going to win on this unless we bring families and educators and students together to advocate. So please join us either at the St. Stephen's Family Organizing meetings or at our Multilingual Learners Alliance meetings if you want to get more involved.
Okay. How about Alicia? You had your hand raised.
Yes, thank you so much. Actually, I was just about to message Ari because I'm a co-ED at a youth-led nonprofit in Holyoke, which is a city that has 70% Puerto Rican population in our schools, and thus like many multilingual students. And I know a lot of initiatives start in Boston, and I'd like to support through Holyoke as well and see if we can make some statewide policies more, make people more aware of them. And so I will connect with Ari to join that coalition and see how we can partner together to make this a broader topic. Thank you.
And Alicia, do you want to say anything about what's going on in Holyoke around multilingual learners?
Unfortunately, as an organizer, I'm really trying to gain information. We're a youth-led organization, so most of my information comes from the young people, and we aren't as connected to their parents because we have a drop-in center. So our youth drop in, and then their parents sign the permissions, and then they come back. So we actually don't get to engage with parents that much. And so I'm here to learn and support and solidarity.
Right. And what's the name of your organization, just so people know?
Absolutely. Palante Transformative Justice.
Ismael, you had a question.
Sí, cómo no, voy a hablar en español. ¿Puedo hacerlo? ¿Hay que hacer algún ajuste? O perfecto. Yo soy
Ismael,
de Loren,
sorry,
que es
Ismael,
sí.
si estás en el canal de español, sería excelente. Si te mueves para el canal de español, si vas a hablar español.
Estoy en el canal de español.
Okay, perfecto, sorry.
Bien.
I'm so sorry.
Bien. Yo soy de Loren, de hecho pertenezco
I am from
al
Lawrence.
LPAC de Loren.
I am a part of LPAC in Lawrence.
Mi
Lawrence.
pregunta, lo
My
que
question
formulé
is what I
es
got
si hay
or what I
organizaciones
formed.
concretas
If we have
que no
any
solamente
concrete
radicadas en Boston,
organization,
sino que
not just
también vayan a
radicated
los
in
demás
Boston,
distritos.
if
Por
they can
ejemplo,
go a
creo que
different
Loren es
district.
una de las
I
ciudades
believe that Lawrence is one
que
of the
más
cities
estudiantes multilingües tiene
that they have
del estado.
a high percentage
su
of
mayoría de
multilingual
origen hispano.
learners,
Aquí
original Hispanic.
creo que
I believe here,
no tengo el dato exacto,
I
pero
don't have the
casi la
exact
totalidad de los estudiantes
data, but
son
the
o han sido
totally
en el pasado identificados
the
como English learners
students have been
y ustedes
identified
saben
as
que
English
tenemos
learning,
alrededor de 13
and
años
you know
bajo
that we
control
have
estatal
been
y
13
aún
years
no
under
mejoramos lo
the
suficiente
state,
con eso.
seen
Y
under the
algunos
state, and
padres
we haven't
hacemos
obtained
esfuerzos
anything
por
with that.
organizarnos,
Many
pero
of the
nos
parents,
vendría
we
bien
try to
que
organize, but it
personas
would be
que
great if we
tengan
can have
experiencia en cuanto a
people
organizaciones
with
nos dieran una
experience
mano para que
in
pudiéramos nosotros
organization
mismos
support
abogar
us
por una
and
educación de
support the
calidad
parents to advocate for
para nuestros
a
hijos.
quality
Apenas este
education
año
for
es que se va a
our
iniciar un
students, for
programa
our kids.
Duolingo, por ejemplo, en
So
Loren.
in
Y
Lawrence,
solamente en
we
una
are going
escuela
to
y en
start
algunos
this
grados
program
solamente.
Duolingo, and it's
Y
going to be for certain
casi
grades
la
only.
totalidad, repito, de los
Almost the
estudiantes
totally, like
son
I
de origen hispano.
repeat it again.
Pero, repito,
Most of our
apenas
students
este
are
año vamos a
Hispanic.
comenzar un programa
And I
Duolingo
repeat it
en una
again.
escuela y
This
solo a
year, we're going to start
unos
on one
cuantos
school
salones de
a
clase.
program, Duolingo, for
Yo sé
certain
que con
classes only.
que hay
I know
recursos, por ejemplo,
with
el SOA.
resources
Loren
like
presentó un plan de
SRO8,
49.5
so
millones
Lawrence
para los
present a
próximos
plan
3
for
años
40
por concepto de la Student
million
Opportunity
dollars
Act.
for next year for the
Pero se hace
Student Act, for
difícil
the concept of Student Act. So it will
porque
be
los
hard.
padres podamos hacer una abogacía
It will be
más
hard for the
eficaz
parents to
porque,
advocate
bueno,
it
somos
officially.
muchos, no manejamos el idioma inglés,
Why?
hablamos
Because
español.
the parents, we don't speak
Y
English, we
además
only speak Spanish.
enfrentamos ciertos
Beside that,
obstáculos,
and then we do
incluso en el mismo
have
distrito,
lack of
sutiles.
other
O sea,
things.
nada
And
abiertamente,
only in
pero
the
sí hay
district.
algunos
It's not
obstáculos.
open,
Además,
but I can see those
y un dato
obstacles that the parents
muy
faces.
importante, no tenemos los padres
As a parents, we
el
don't
LPAC,
have el
necesitamos
LPAC.
capacitación.
We
No tiene
wouldn't
sentido
need
que la ley
training or
mande a
workshop
crear un LPAC
because
cuando no
that doesn't
contemple
make
que a
sense
los
that the
padres
state
se les
sent
provea o
this
cuando
the
si los
current part
distritos no le
or
proveen
the
a los
pack
padres algún tipo de
if
capacitación sobre
the
cómo
parents are
funciona
not
un distrito
prepared for
escolar,
that.
cómo
How,
funcionan las
for
escuelas,
example,
qué es un
how the
currículum,
district functions,
no tiene
what
sentido.
is the
¿Cómo
curriculum,
un padre
or what is
puede
the school system,
asesorar
how the parents can
si no
be
tiene
assessed if
la
we don't
capacitación
have
apropiada? Entonces,
that
da la impresión de
properly
que estamos
training? So
simulando
that it gives that the
que
impression we
estamos
will
haciendo el trabajo, pero
simulate
no haciéndolo.
that we're trying to do
Discúlpenme
the
por
work, but
extenderme,
we're not doing
pero
correctly because we are
me
not
preocupa
trained
mucho y me
properly.
duele
I'm
mucho
sorry that
porque
I
soy
had to
padre
talk
de
this.
niños en las escuelas
It's my
públicas
concern because I do have my kids at
y
the public
estamos
school.
aparentemente solos en Loren. Parece que no
And
hay
it
nadie en el
seems like
estado que
we
se
are
acerque
lonely.
a los
We don't
padres y les
have
ofrezca asesoría,
support
orientación
enough.
y que les
The
ayude a
state is
organizarse
not
para que nosotros
giving
podamos
properly orientation to the
abogar
parents
de manera
so we
eficaz
can
por nuestros
advocate
hijos.
in a proper way for our students, for our kids.
So I can try to answer around an organization that is trying to work in Lawrence with parents and with families. So the Massachusetts Education Justice Alliance has different tables. And one of the tables that they have is particularly in Lawrence. And I know that they're trying to bring parents together. And I think that this would be an excellent thing for them to take up. So I can connect you, Ismael. I'm gonna drop my email in the chat and I could connect you to the organizers there, and they are trying to bring parents together. So there is the Lawrence Education Justice Alliance, particularly in Lawrence, which I think, again, it would be great, you know, and I can help connect to see what, you know, how we can try to help parents advocate there, because you know, the voices of parents are really, really needed, but you know, there has to be some education that comes with that so that they know the importance of them being involved and speaking up. So I don't know if that answers your question, and if anybody else has any other answers.
Perdón, discúlpenme porque usted acaba de mencionar, yo conozco, creo que conozco la organización a que
I
usted hace
think I
referencia.
know
He
the
participado en múltiples
organization.
reuniones
I
con ellos
have
desde hace varios
participated
años
in many
y por lo
meetings
visto
with them
tenemos un
for a few
concepto
years,
distinto
but
de lo
it looks
que
like we have a
es ayudar
different
a los
concept,
padres.
how to
Nosotros no
support the
necesitamos
parents.
que vengan a
We don't
darnos charlas,
need
necesitamos
to
que nos
give
enseñen a librar la
us
batalla.
to
Necesitamos
have a talk.
capacitación,
We
no que
need
nos vengan a
training.
decir
We
cosas
need
que suenan bien, que suenan
capacitation.
bonitos,
We
sino
don't want
que
just
nos
her
capaciten,
beautiful
nos
things.
ayuden
So we
a
want to
obtener
be trained
información
to
y
obtain
además
more
saber cómo funciona
information
el sistema
and
para que
also to
nosotros
learn the
podamos,
system, the
porque
school
tenemos ciertas
system.
particularidades.
So
Tal vez lo que
because
funciona en
we
Boston
have
no
a
funciona en Loren, pero
different
si nos
particulars.
proveen,
In
o sea,
my
no
work in
queremos que nos
Lawrence,
inviten a
where it
charlas,
doesn't work
queremos
in
cosas
Boston, we
concretas.
don't just
Los
want to be
padres
part
por
of
eso
meeting or
eh,
talking or conversation.
no, a veces culpamos a los padres de que no
Many
participan en las
times
charlas,
we
pero es que
blame
las
the
charlas se
parents
quedan
that the parents they
lamentablemente
don't
en
access
charlas,
to a
nada
conversation or
concreto.
meetings,
Y no digo
but in
que
a
es esta
meeting we have
organización,
anything
muchas organizaciones
concrete.
tienen base en la ciudad,
So
pero
I know that many
lamentablemente
organizations
parece que
they have a
también
base in the city,
simulan.
pero
Es una representación,
they
un
just
teatro,
simulate it. They
no
just
hay
are
cosas concretas. Y los
representing. So
padres,
there is
aunque no
no
hablemos el inglés,
specific or
somos
concrete
inteligentes
things.
algunos y
So
sabemos
you know
aunque
some
no
parents
podamos
they're smart,
expresarlo,
even if we're not
sabemos
able to
cuando
express ourselves, but
no
we
se nos
know
está ayudando o cuando no,
when you're not
cuando la
receiving
ayuda
the
ofrecida no
proper
cumple con las
support.
expectativas. Y
And
eso es que
also
planteamos
when the
nosotros. Le pido al resto
expectation it's
del
not
grupo
accomplished.
que me
So
disculpen por
again, I'm
extenderme,
so sorry.
pero
I
es
apologize
que
with
realmente
everyone
es
that
muy
I'm going over
doloroso
the time. But
ver
this is
que
very
nuestros
painful.
estudiantes tienen todo el
Seeing our
potencial para
students,
ser
they do
iguales o
have the
mejores que
potential
los estudiantes
just like the
nacidos
English
acá, de padres de acá, y
speaker
que
or better than them.
continuamos bajo
Or,
control del Estado porque estamos
but
por
we
debajo del
have
promedio
to
en el Estado.
have a
Y yo
control
sé
of the
que nuestros
state,
estudiantes
but
tienen
I
la
know
capacidad.
that they are
Habiendo
under the
tantas
average
organizaciones con sede en Loren,
with
con
their
base en Loren,
rates,
y
but
aún
especially in
no tenemos
Lawrence,
una
Wow.
organización de
we
padres
don't have an
sólida.
organization
Nosotros mismos,
solid
últimamente,
for the
desde el ELPAC,
parents,
estamos haciendo reuniones, pero nuestros
just the
recursos
parents
son muy
and LPAC.
limitados y
We are
tenemos muchos
lonely. Our
obstáculos.
resources are very
Porque
limited.
a
We have a
veces
lot of
hay personas que
obstacles.
no les gusta que uno señale
Some people
fallos.
they don't like
Por lo
to
tanto, no les gusta que
they don't
uno
like us
aprenda,
to
que
point
los
those
padres se
mistakes.
capaciten.
But however,
Dicho sea,
we
ayer mismo
need
teníamos una reunión, los
more
padres quieren,
orientation for the
pero nos
parents.
falta
Yesterday we
la
had a meeting.
capacitación y nos
We
falta
have a lot of
acompañamiento.
parents,
No
but
que
we
nos inviten solo a
need
charlas,
more
que haya una
training, more
organización de verdad
capacitation. We
que se
don't need just
identifiquen unos
talking.
líderes y
We
que se
want
les
an
proveen las
organization
herramientas. No que
to
vengan una
point
vez a la semana o
leaders,
una vez al
to
mes
have
a
trainings.
hablarnos del tema.
We only meet
No, no sé
once
si me doy a
a
entender.
month, only
Cosas
to
más
talk in
concretas
the meetings,
es lo
but
que
we need
necesitamos.
a
Que nos
better,
enseñe
a
cómo funciona un
concrete
distrito escolar. Que tomemos un
education
año
for
si
the
es posible.
parents.
Capacitación constante.
We have
Estipendios para que los
constantly
padres podamos viajar
capacitation.
a Boston.
So we
Para que
can
podamos tener
also we
acceso
need
en nuestro idioma
funds so we
materno
can
a
travel to
conferencias, a
Boston, so we can go
seminarios
to
con expertos en el tema.
seminars,
De manera que
to
podamos opinar
conference
y de
with
verdad
people
asesorar al Distrito
experts to
Oriental
this,
sobre
and
cómo el
then
programa de enseñanza del idioma inglés se
have a
aplica. De
knowledge
manera que
about the
podamos estar en
programs, what
capacidad
they are
de
teaching, where
identificar
they're.
los fallos
We
que
need
hay
to
en el distrito que no
identify
permiten que nuestros
those
estudiantes
mistakes in the
avancen como el
districts
resto.
that they don't
Y
let our
eso es lo que
students
queremos,
to um,
que nos capaciten de tal manera que
have
podamos
success.
identificar qué es lo que está fallando.
So
Son
we
los
need to
maestros,
identify
son los
what
administradores,
is the
¿qué ocurre?
problem? Are the teachers,
Muchas,
they are
y
the
discúlpenme
administrators, are
nuevamente
the
por
students?
extenderme,
Again, I'm so
pero
sorry
para
that
mí
I
el
went
tema
over.
es muy importante
For
y
me, this
lo
topic is
vivo en carne
very,
propia.
very
Y los
important
padres,
because I am
insisto, que a
living
nosotros
in
nos falta eso.
myself
Ayer
as
mismo
a
hubo una
parent.
reunión en
Yesterday, we
persona
had a
y
meeting in
asistieron
person.
alrededor de
We had
124 padres,
124
cerca de
parents,
80 padres en horas de la mañana y
80 parents in the morning. We had a
134 en
meeting
horas de la tarde.
and
Y
134
eso, bueno,
in the evening.
214 padres en total
Well,
aproximadamente. Y el
214
entusiasmo
parents. I
fue muy
saw the
grande.
enthusiasm. It was
Creo
great.
que
The
es
enthusiasm was
la
great.
reunión de los LPACs más grande, creo, de
I think
todo
it's
el
the
estado.
biggest meeting
Porque
that
no
we
creo que
have for
en otros
LPAC and
distritos
other districts. I don't think
se hayan dado reuniones
parents, they
así
will,
con ese número de
that amount of
personas.
parents will show up in a
Perdón
meeting
por
like this.
extenderme,
Again, I'm so
pero
sorry that I
insisto,
went over.
necesitamos una
I
organización,
insist, we
alguien
need an organization organization.
venga a
We
ayudar no
need a
solamente a
leader.
darnos
We
charlas,
need to support
sino
the
que nos
parents,
permita de
not
verdad
to
que nos
just come and
capacite
talk to
para
us.
que podamos
We
evaluar
need
el
training. We
sistema
need
educativo, para que podamos evaluar
capacitation
el currículum y para que
so
podamos
we
de verdad
can
señalar
be able
está
to
mal,
understand the
y
curriculum,
también
so
sugerir
we can be
cambios que
able to
vayan
point
acordes
the
con nuestras
problems
culturas, con nuestras capacidades.
and also to
Perdón
go
otra vez
with
por
our
extenderme.
culture and to give us more capacity or training workshops.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ismael. And I'm gonna also drop my email in the chat, and maybe we can connect to see how we can, help build up parent capacity in Lawrence and to help out in Lawrence. Muchísimas gracias. And thank you for your passion and for your, your advocacy and for, you don't have to be sorry for anything. That's what I wanted to tell you. But we are going to move on to another question, Dan.
Yeah. Well, one thing that Ismail mentioned, and a couple of people had put it in the chat, was about English learner parent advisory councils. And so I wanted to just open up to any panelist, if you could explain to people what English learner parent advisory councils are and what the law is around them, because it is in the law that districts with significant percentages of English learners must have PACs. Any of the panelists?
Well, I, if you don't mind, I can add to that. The U.S. Department of Education, I think in 2020, now I might have the date wrong, wrote about why it's so important and why Ishmael's voice is so important. I think he said that there were, I don't know how many parents came to this meeting. And the U.S. Department of Education wrote about how important it is to have diverse voices represented. And part of the PAC idea is that when schools have both significant numbers and low incidences of multilingual learners, that there be a diverse representation of groups involved in really helping schools be successful with multilingual learners. And by representation, it's not just having parent representatives, but at the table having representatives from the schools and from the community. So it's for example, in Lawrence, it might be parent representatives, teacher representatives, administrators, members of the school community be part of, and I want to say a collective team on really creating a trusted group of people who can really look at what's happening and really help discern what's working and what needs strengthening. And part of, I think, what our wonderful colleague said and was apologizing and said, I'm a parent and I apologize. No parent should apologize. We should be so happy that you want to be involved. And that's great, and are bringing so many families in, because families should have a voice. In the U.S. Department of Education really talk about the importance of parents and guardians really having a voice and a choice in their child's education. So in schools with significant numbers, the law does require a PAC, but the U.S. Department of Education, in addition, is saying that there should be PACs as well as diverse groups of people who can really help multilingual learners succeed all across the board. That's what I wanted to share.
And, as Ismail noted, even though PACs need support from the outside in providing training, PACs can be one place to start organizing. I'm going to call, if Cam Wilson is still here. There was a question
I think Roger wanted to weigh in.
Oh, sorry.
One
Okay,
point
sorry,
about
Roger.
PACs.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, one point about PACs, something very important. There's PACs and there's PACs. If PACs mean parents get together and ask their questions, parents have real input into how schools program, how they spend money, and if parents have the ability to say, no, we don't like the way things are, that's one kind of a PAC. The other kind of a PAC, and I would have to say the usual PAC, and Debbie, I'd have to say the U.S. Department of Education probably wouldn't be upset about it, or at least it hasn't been, is the PAC where parents see a PowerPoint presentation that somebody is written for them, go through the PowerPoint presentation, ask if they're happy with the presentation, end of meeting, check it off, come back in a month or two. There's a difference between an empowered PAC of the parents and a PAC that is a check off that school districts have to have because it's Section 6A of the state law. They have to have a PAC. But you know what? There were PACs back in the old days, and those PACs brought lawsuits against Lawrence, against Lowell, against Holyoke, and against Boston and Chelsea. And then the State Department of Ed persuaded the legislature to take PACs out of the law and said, well, there'll be parent representation through a parent council for all students. And that is to disempower immigrants and disempower parents who don't speak English. And that was the purpose. It wasn't like a unintended consequence. That's what they were doing. So there's PACs and there's PACs. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Roger. Anybody else? I didn't mean to miss anybody. I was gonna, Cam, if you're still here, I'd ask the question, who is helping Haitian immigrants who are dumped into Framingham? Well, other people may comment on that. Cam, maybe you want to explain what's going on in Framingham for everybody to hear. Cam may have left. So, but just know there's more cities. Clearly from Cam's question, there's more and more cities around the state that are having the need for organizing. So another question was what, and we've sort of, oh, did I miss someone? No. In what ways can grassroots organizations support the initiatives of teachers and parents? We've sort of hit on this, but anybody have anything else to add? Okay. Ismail.
I'm sorry, I'll just quickly add, to that, just simple sharing, something as simple as posting it on your social media feeds, letting if you're physically in the schools to, let parents know, maybe download if there's a QR code, say, mira, there's this thing happening, you should look at, check it out, scan the code. Very basic ways to, just to support what's happening. There's a lot going on. There are a lot of crossovers, but just finding, even if it's one meeting, even if it's that one most important meeting, to show up and pull up.
Creo que me parece interesante lo que dijo la doctora.
This is very interesting what the doctor said a few minutes ago. We have years asking the organization to work as a school committee in the district and the superintendent to let us participate actively in the efficacious way to make decisions. Just like someone was saying, you're gonna have a survey for your parents. Let us to be part of that, to formulate that survey, to select those questions. I don't know if this has happened in other districts.
en papeles y en teoría las cosas están
Theoretically
bien
or in paper,
porque se busca la
everything it
manera
looks
de
fine
acomodar.
because you find a way how to
Sería
formulate
bueno
a
que así
question
como hay
or
campañas
message.
para
It would be great, like a
hacemos campañas a
campaigns.
nivel del
We
Estado
have
para
campaigns
derogar, qué sé yo, cosas, también
at the
deberíamos hacer
state
una
level
campaña de todos para
for things. If we do have a
promover eso, que
campaign
en los distritos hayan,
to bring this up
se le provea los recursos
for
necesarios,
districts,
que
so
el
but
distrito
we
se haga
have to
responsable
have
de
those
ayudar a los padres,
resources
proveyéndole todos los
specifically
recursos
for the
necesarios,
parents, just
pero sin
provide those resources for the parents
influenciarlos para que los padres
without
escojan a uno o
influencing
varios
them,
representantes,
so
una
the
especie
parents
de
will pick
asociación de padres,
one or
porque
few
los maestros
leaders
tienen un
to
sindicato,
represent the parents.
hasta
We
los
know that the
jánitos tienen un
teachers, they don't have
sindicato,
a
pero
union.
los padres
Even
no
the
tenemos un sindicato, no tenemos
parents,
quien
we
nos
don't have a
represente
union.
y
We don't
piensan
have
que
anyone
somos padres
representing
que
us.
no
Think
dominamos
about
el
it.
idioma
We are
nuestra
parents
mayoría.
that we
Somos
don't
padres que
speak
tenemos a veces
English.
más de un trabajo.
We
No
are
nos pueden
parents that
pedir que
we
vayamos a
have
todas las
more than
reuniones.
two
No podemos estar
two
informados de todo lo que
jobs.
ocurre. Pero si
So
nos organizamos
please don't
y
ask us to go
participamos
to
por
every single
representación,
meeting.
es
But if we
participación por
organize
representación,
ourselves
que
and then we go
escojamos
participation
algunos
for
padres que nos
representation, if we
representen, así como
select
los
certain
maestros
parents
tienen sus
to represent
representantes,
us,
así
just like
como
the
los
teachers, they
principales de las
have their
escuelas tienen sus
representants.
representantes,
Just like the teacher, the
porque
school also, they have
nosotros no
people to
tenemos
represent
quien nos
them.
represente.
We don't
Los
have
padres
anyone
no
to
tienen quien
represent
nos
us.
represente, pero nosotros tenemos años planteando eso
But we've been
y se hace
talking
caso
about this.
omiso a
We've
eso.
been
Queremos que nos permitan participar
trying
en el
to
proceso
implement
de toma de
this
decisión,
for
pero
years.
participación real,
We
incluso
want
a
to
veces
be
esto ocurre
part
en
of
algunos
the
distritos. En ocasiones nuestras
decision
voces
makers.
son usurpadas. Los
Our
mismos empleados del
voices,
distrito que elaboran las encuestas
the
para saber
staff of the
cómo está
district,
yendo, cómo se sienten los padres, son los mismos que interpretan, ellos mismos eligen las preguntas y muchas veces son preguntas
they
guiadas.
select the
Y
questions
entonces ellos mismos son los que interpretan
and
el
they do
resultado de
interpreter
esas encuestas. Pero
the
en muchos
answer of those
casos,
surveys
esas
because they
encuestas
formulated the
no
questions.
hay una muestra
It's not, it
representativa.
doesn't come
Es
from the
decir,
parents. So
se
that means that
usurpan las voces de los padres. Pero
we don't have a
recuerden, somos
represented.
padres de origen inmigrante
So what
en su
happened?
mayoría.
They
Nos falta
they speak for
información.
us
Somos
as a
incluso
parents. We're
ingenuos.
lack of
Entonces,
information.
por eso nos cuesta,
We're
a veces nos falta la
naives.
conciencia de clase. No sé si entienden, nos falta la
I don't
conciencia
know.
de
I
clase.
don't know if you understand this, but we're not consciously
Por eso
properly
digo, es importante que si hay organizaciones que de verdad nos ayudan, lo que
about the
queremos,
system, about the education. So
no
that's why I
solamente que
said,
existan los
as a
padres,
parents, we
sino
need to
que
organize
también
and we need an
el DC,
organization
que se
also.
presione al DC
Also, if
para que
we do
ordene que el
press the
distrito
DC to
también
demand the
seleccione a los padres del
district
PAC
to
y le
have a
ofrezca
to select
capacitación,
the
entrenamiento,
parents
y si es posible
to
algunos estipends
provide
para que esos padres vayan una o dos veces por
training,
semana y aprendan cómo
to provide
funciona
training to the
una
parents.
escuela. ¿Qué es un
Just to show us how does it work, how the system school works. Just that, for parents to understand that.
Yes, so
What-
I would be more than willing and happy to, and I know, we work closely with Suhei, Ari, and many different folks here that do a wonderful job at St. Stephen's. And I think that we would be more than happy to connect with you to see how we can support in building that type of organization and the education and building up parent voice. Unfortunately for Lawrence, it is in receivership and I would just be honest, it's not convenient for districts. Like they do these things purposely, right? But I want to thank you so much and I'm looking forward to connecting with you. And I just wanted to turn it over to Lisa because we have about 2 minutes left. We might take 3 more of your minutes if you guys don't mind. But thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Suleika, for being our moderator tonight. And I want to thank from the bottom of my heart to all of our wonderful panelists, and maybe we can unmute and give them a round of applause. Roger and Debbie and Suhey and Simel and Arisha, who had to leave. Thank you all for your wonderful comments and insights. And thanks to all the participants and people who asked such really excellent, probing, and important questions tonight. And I just want to quickly thank our planning committee, Dan French, Carolyn Silva Sanchez, Sheila Dector, and Suleika. And couple of last things. Roger and others mentioned the MCAS and the negative impact it has, particularly on English learners in Massachusetts. So I just put in the chat a link to a page with information about question 2, which will be on the ballot on November 5th. And it would eliminate the MCAS graduation requirement. And you can learn all about that question and how you can get involved. We need all hands on deck to get that passed. And I will be following up to everyone who is registered for tonight with the recording and with information about the next 2 sessions. The next session, session 2, is on October 24th, What Makes an Effective Bilingual Program? And session 3 will be on November 12th, Building the Bilingual Educator Pipeline. And again, watch your email inboxes for information about those sessions and how you can register. And with that, just thanks again to everyone. I think it was a really informative and important session. I hope you all felt that way too. Thanks and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Suhey.
Bye. Thank you. Buenas.
Gracias. Thank you.
Oh, I forgot to
Gracias.
thank
Bye,
our
Smile.
interpreter. Our interpreter. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Carolina,
yes.
for interpretation.
Oh.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna start putting some people in the waiting room. Let me turn off. Oh, Ingrid.
Mhm.
Okay.